Hey everybody, welcome to the return of the BJJ Addict podcast. I will be your host today. My name is Josh, and joining me is my good friend Denis Kang. How's it going, buddy?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
No worries, no worries. So we'll get started with the latest news I just hopped online and saw, and that's Rory McDonald just got announced that he's going to be fighting Hector Lombard at UFC 186 in Montreal. Yeah. Oh, that is one hell of a fight.
Yeah, sick fight. You know, I've trained with both those guys extensively, so I got a pretty good opinion.
So what do you think? I mean, Hector Lombard's got to be one of the scariest people probably in the world right now.
He is. But if you get, I'm gonna try to stay neutral. All right. Once you get past Hector's kind of intimidating aura, he's good. You know, but really, he's not really an enigma in my opinion. He's beatable. You know, like I was saying earlier, Rory, the key for Rory is going to be to use his reach. I mean, the kid is really long, you know, and Hector is really short and stubby, you know, so he's going to have to use his footwork and his jab. He has a really good jab, one of the best jabs in the division, in my opinion. He uses his reach even on the ground, you know, he uses his legs and his body length really well for extra leverage. And I mean, if he can, you know, stick to a disciplined game plan, which he usually does, TriStar usually, you know, has a good game plan with Faraz, he can pull it off. Hector, you know, we saw it in his last fight against Berkman. He just plods forward fearlessly, you know, which is, if you're a short, stockier fighter, that's what you should do. You should not play the long game and just kind of sit back and pot shot people, right? So he does what he should be doing. So he needs to cut people off more, because he tends to follow people around and just kind of be led around the cage. If he got with better lateral movement, I mean, he could have finished Berkman in that first round, but instead he was just following him around. If he had better lateral movement and he could corner Berkman or Rory, against the fence, he could do a lot of damage. And again, he needs to use his jab more to feint and to control his opponent to kind of back him up, because just walking forward is not enough, because you're going to walk into shit, right? Mm-hmm. So he needs to plod forward, but with launching offense at the same time, be it real jabs or feints, or, you know, fake jabs or fake shots, you know? And I think that's the key for him. So, I mean, you know, it all depends on who can execute their game plan the best.
I was just going to say, because, I mean, even, like, Rory from fight to fight, you kind of don't know, I mean, and this isn't a knock against him, but you don't know which Rory's going to show up. Is it going to be the crazy aggressive, or is it going to be the super strategic, like, tactical, step-by-step fighter? I mean, like, I would assume you'd want to play it safe with Hector, just because of the amount of power he brings into the cage. I mean, you can't mess around with a guy like that. Like, you want to play it safe, but when you see Rory go off on guys, like, he's got a lot of power. I almost want to say he's underrated. I don't think his skills are underrated, but I think his power is really underrated.
Yeah, both of them have one-hit knockout power, so they can both knock each other out, right? Now, the Rory that's current is the one that we saw against Tarek Saffiedine, I think.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
So, I mean, that one is on a roll. He's more aggressive than when we've seen him in the past, being a little bit too hesitant. And I don't know if it can pose problems for Lombard, you know. But then again, you can never count Lombard out, because as limited as he can be, he has gone 5 rounds numerous times, and that guy is mentally tough, you know. Yeah. He you know, sometimes I mean, maybe it takes a fighter to know this, but I can tell that in some of his Bellator fights, he's gone a distance and he was a little bit winded, like against Shlemenko, for example. Mm-hmm. It was going the distance, 5 rounds in Bellator, and he was a little bit tired, and who wouldn't be after going 5 rounds? But Hector wasn't showing it. You know, he was still pushing forward. He's very mentally tough, and he has a good poker face. And that goes a long way. That's a big thing, you know?
For sure. Now, with this fight, do you kind of think, I mean, I look at from the outside in, and I see this, and, like, you see ATT versus TriStar. Do you think this is two of the strongest camps going head-to-head?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, you know?
Both, I was going to say, again, you kind of have odd insight, because you've trained both at ATT, and you obviously trained a lot at TriStar.
Yeah, I've trained extensively at both of them, and I don't know. Yeah, those are two of the best camps for sure. They're strong teams, a lot of sparring partners, a lot of good coaches, a lot of good strategies. Both camps have their own kind of style, and along with that style comes strengths and weaknesses. But it's I don't know. It's also up to the individual athlete,
For sure. Well, I think both of these guys have kind of proven like they want to get to that top spot. Especially Rory. I think he kind of got the short end of the stick with the Hendricks Lawler rematch a little bit. I mean, I don't necessarily see the need for that to go to a trilogy right away, but it is what it is, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree. I think both of them are kind of. Maybe Hector even more so is in a part of his career where he needs to prove himself, because I mean he came into the UFC very highly touted from Bellator, the champion hasn't been beaten in so many fights, and then he goes and loses to Tim Boych, who is a journeyman, a gatekeeper at best. Although he's a lot tougher to fight than people think. I think he's very hard to look good against. He's just not that flashy or charismatic of a fighter, and he's not that good of I don't know. I think he's good, but he's not that good. Anyways, and Hector came in there and lost that fight, and he was clearly outsized. So there was a lot of hype with him coming in. He didn't really live up to it. Now he has come back, by beating who did he beat? He beat Toquinho really fast. He beat Berkman. He beat did he beat Marquardt?
He did. Yeah, he KO'd Marquardt.
That's right. So he is rallying back some solid wins, but that division is probably one of the toughest.
Oh, for sure. And he kind of, I feel like, and I mean, it was talked about kind of widely in the media, and at least speculated upon, that a lot of guys did not want to fight him. Like a lot of guys were ducking him, because that's not a good fight for anybody.
No, he's very intimidating. He's like I'm going to reference Palhares. He's like a striking Palhares almost, like a short, stumpy, Mike Tyson-esque striker who's fearless and tough and aggressive and mean.
And scary judo.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at what he did
judo,
to Jake
it's
Shields.
Very unpredictable. You're right. That's right.
He threw him around like a toy. It was kind of silly to watch. And I mean, you're talking about, in my opinion, Jake Shields probably some of the best jiu-jitsu in the game, and he had no answer for him. No answer whatsoever.
He's very explosive.
Well, that'll be a good fight for Montreal. I think that'll be a pretty good return to Canada for the UFC. I think that one actually falls.
It is in Rory's hometown. He is living there in Montreal now, so he does have a bit of home ice advantage.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm a big Rory Mac fan. I like him. I like this Rory better. I don't know if you call this like Rory 2.0, but like this aggressive, super confident fighter I think it's the best him. I could totally be talking shit there, but like, he went through that whole like American Psycho phase where he was really quiet and like everything. That was kind of weird, and I don't know what was going on there, but like,
well, he's young, we all have to kind of find ourselves when we're young and experiment with different ways of being and acting out, until you finally find your groove, so to speak, and I think that's what Rory was going through.
Well, just where he's at now, I think he's a killer. Like, I really do. I mean, you watch him, I think he's kind of like, you're seeing his skill. He's confident in what he can do. Like, he's had his losses. He's learned from them clearly, and has just made his way up the ranks. And I think he's where he thinks he should be right now. And it shows across the board. So it's kind of cool to see him come up like that.
Yeah.
We definitely have to talk about the giant, we'll say, white elephant in the room, and talk about Jon Jones and his recent cocaine problem.
Yeah.
So now there's been a lot of talk about this, and I kind of personally have mixed feelings, and I'd love your opinion as a professional fighter. Like, out of competition drug use, it is by no means any secret that there are a lot of fighters who use a lot of recreational drugs, and I know this from my personal experiences with people, and I'm sure you do too. And I mean, if you read any of these guys' books, like Chuck Liddell's book, like there's a lot of drug use that goes on, but it's all out of competition, as they say. Does it matter that he tested positive for cocaine? I don't think it does.
Well, it's definitely not performance enhancing.
For sure.
You know,
For sure.
It's hard. It matters in the sense that, I mean, he's supposed to be a champion, and he's supposed to be a role model. But
Yeah.
I don't think that he owes it to the public to be a role model. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's just those are just expectations that are just kind of put upon his shoulders by an expecting public. You know.
Yeah.
Now, should it matter? That's hard to say. I don't know. You know, it's like I said, it's not performance enhancing. So I think because it's that far away, I don't think it should matter. You know.
I agree. I understand the problems that people have with it, and you know, there's the role model argument where he shouldn't be doing it. And from a business standpoint, it's about the stupidest fucking thing you could get caught doing. Like, let's be real, the guy signed a Reebok. Like, he has all these endorsements. Yeah. He's the face of the organization.
Yeah.
You know you're getting tested.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real. Like, it's not a surprise. In past instances, I believe he's requested extensive testing on his opponents. And I mean, I would assume, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but like, you know you're going to get drug tested. I know they test for performance-enhancing drugs, but you would figure along with that they would test for recreational drugs. So this shouldn't have been a shock to him by any means. So
no, but I'm going to stop you right there, Josh, because Jon Jones is allowed to live his life in whatever way he chooses outside of the fight game.
Absolutely.
Like I was saying, he doesn't owe it to anybody to live his life a certain way. You know, fighting is something that he does. It's not necessarily who he is. Mm-hmm. You know, he's not obligated by any means to live like a champion all the time. All that matters is that he competes fairly.
Yep.
You know, now at that time when he got tested, was he competing? He was not.
No.
He was preparing to compete, but he was not competing, in my opinion. You know, so I don't think that testing should matter. If it was the night of the fight, then it should matter.
For sure. Absolutely.
If it was even the week of the fight, then just to be safe, then it should matter.
Yeah,
right?
Well, I think they said in competition is 12 weeks, 8 weeks out. I should probably Google that, but it's pretty close to the fight. And when he got tested, he was pretty far outside of competition. So it's just funny to see how people react and how a lot of people are calling bullshit on it. And realistically, I mean, yeah, you can compare it against marijuana, and they've eased up the testing on marijuana because the
Well, what is that? Have people been tested for marijuana out of competition and been penalized for it?
See, that's the thing is, you have guys like, who's the one, like Nick Diaz.
Or have they only tested positive at fight time?
Well, no, but the metabolites, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but the metabolites, it stays in your system longer. So like people were saying about Nick Diaz, you have a guy like Nick Diaz who smokes on a regular basis, could stop smoking out of competition, and it would still show up in his bloodstream because it takes 30 days or however long to get out.
You would almost need individual testing for each drug.
Exactly.
Which is extremely difficult. So everything would have to be dealt with on a case-by-case basis.
Exactly. I mean, and realistically, neither which are performance enhancing, but if it's the half-life of it or whatever that's going to stay in your system longer, whereas cocaine, it's out in 48 hours, I think they've said. So I think the guys like Matt Rydell, I think, got canned for it. And I mean, there have been a bunch of guys who have been suspended for it and fined for it, where it's, I mean, unless you're smoking up in the locker room, which, hey, the Diaz brothers, who knows, or immediately after the fight when you're about to get tested, you can't get it out of your system, realistically. Even if you've stopped a month out, you can't get it out of your system. And that's not fair necessarily to penalize a fighter for that, for doing something that's non-performance enhancing. That's, depending on where they're fighting, not illegal. In Nick Diaz's case, I believe it was a fight it was in Las Vegas, but he had like a California license for it. Like, there are always circumstances that can lead to it being acceptable. But I mean, I think all of that falls the same way the cocaine does. I mean, it's it's out of competition. It's not performance enhancing. And to your point, like
right.
he doesn't owe anybody to not do it. If he wants to do a little blow, I mean, really,
You're right.
who can
and
stop him?
I mean, the main controversy is people are comparing it to the people testing positive to marijuana metabolites and getting penalized for it.
Yeah.
Where really it's a different issue because I mean it all depends upon the timing of the testing if it was in competition. And again, like we were saying earlier, the marijuana metabolites stay in your system longer.
Yeah.
So, you know, like the day of the fight, you could be testing positive for marijuana that you smoked, you know, a month before or you know 12 weeks before, which was clearly out of competition.
Yeah, no, it's really unfortunate, and there are definitely going to have to be changes made to the system if they want to be more accurate with in-competition testing at least, or at the very least keep out of competition tests confidential maybe.
Right.
I mean, who's...
Yeah, that's a tough one. Again,
you know, is it public record? Technically, I mean, you know, if you want to argue it's a medical record and it should remain confidential, does that I mean, I don't know if that argument holds any water, but what's the point in coming out with it if it's gonna hurt somebody but has like no bearing on whether the fight the result of the fight changes? I mean,
no, they need to you know to have different a different batch of testing protocols for in and out of competition testing, you know. Absolutely.
And I think the one big takeaway where no one looks good or innocent in this situation isn't even Jon Jones, and I don't want to pin anything on the UFC. I'm a fan, but the fact that they found out prior to the fight and didn't say anything. And I mean, from a business standpoint, I completely get it, because you figure they announce, test came back, he tested positive for cocaine, he's checked into rehab, it's taken care of. Great, and that's cool, and that's, you know, good on him. You do that 2 weeks out of the fight. From a PR standpoint, he has to drop out of the fight, he needs to check into rehab. They're going to lose millions of dollars. Like people who are
and you know what, that brings me to my next point. And I don't believe that Jon Jones has a cocaine problem. I don't believe that he truly needed to check himself into rehab. He did that to give the public closure on the issue.
I couldn't agree more.
So, basically, it's a PR move, right?
It has to be. You can't be that guy. UFC light heavyweight champion tests positive for cocaine, and your press release says, "I like to party."
Yeah,
that doesn't fly with anybody.
You can't have a cocaine problem and train for 5-round fight and compete in a 5-round fight and win at a 5-round fight.
Absolutely
I'm
not.
sorry. No, you just can't.
No, that's not a good message to the kids who want to grow up to be Jon Jones.
No, but again, he is. I guess in a way he's doing the right thing. The message is, if you make a mistake, own up to it and get help. You know, because I guess it can look like he has a cocaine problem, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
There are some people who are I guess, you know, ignorant on the issue and will, you know, as soon as you test for something, you've got a cocaine problem, you're a druggie or you're a junkie right away, you know.
Well, did you see? There's an awesome thread on the Underground about Chael kind of alluding to the fact that he may have a cocaine issue.
What? No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, there's you gotta hop online and check that shit out. Someone posted a photo from the weigh-in when they fought each other, and like after they weigh in, right when they go to the stare down, Chael busts out a can of Coke and sips it in front of him, and like his tweet was something like, if you don't stop lying about me, I'll start telling the truth about you, or something like that. Like it's pretty funny if the two are related, which I have a feeling because of Chael they probably are.
So it's Chael saying that he has a Coke problem, but really he's just pulling out a can of Coke?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? So he's joking.
Yeah.
This is funny. This is a joke.
He's the man.
Okay, right. He is funny. I was listening to his podcast today, by the way.
Who do you have on? You have a good one on?
I was listening to Who is the Iron Sheik?
Fuck off. You're the Iron Sheik.
I listened to 5 minutes of the Iron Sheik, and then I turned it off because you can't understand a word of what he said. I didn't know if he was serious or not, and then I realized he is serious. The Iron Sheik, he's nuts. The other one was Rashad Evans, and the other one that was pretty good was, oh my God, he had a lawyer talking about the antitrust lawsuit with the UFC. And he had Daniel Cormier on, that's right.
I heard the Cormier one, I heard the Rashad one. The lawyer one would be interesting. Like, what do you,
the Cormier one. It's on the same one, I believe. It's just
is
at
it
the end
really?
of it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I stopped listening after Cormier. Yeah. So, having fought for the UFC, not to jump around, but like, what do you think of this whole antitrust suit? It's pretty crazy.
It's bullshit. I think it's bullshit. Yeah. I don't think the UFC owes anybody anything. I think, I don't know. It's like, what are they supposed to do? Not make smart business decisions, make stupid ones just to have a level playing field. Everyone else is allowed to, I don't know. It's a free country. They can all make good business. I don't think that they've aggressively or, a monopoly is when they're actively stopping other people from making business, and I don't think that they're doing that. The argument could be made for it with Pride and Strikeforce, I guess,
at the time.
At the time. But I don't know if they were going out of business. Pride was going out of business or had basically imploded from corruption. Strikeforce was going out of business just from, I don't know if it was incompetence or if it was just lack of funding. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't know, but they were investigated at the time when they had purchased Pride and they purchased Strikeforce. They were under investigation and they were cleared.
That's right. I remember that. Really? Okay. Good, yeah.
It just seems really silly to now when you have more promotions coming up, when you have lion fights and Bellator, like, what's the point in going after them now saying that they run a monopoly? Like, clearly they don't.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what those guys, that's what the lawyer was saying is, we're piggybacking on someone else's podcast now, but what he was saying, the lawyer was explaining that this is actually very complicated law, and the lawyers that are going against the UFC would have to actually prove that they are actively pursuing a monopoly and actively stopping other businesses from making business, and actively not paying the fighters very well. And then there's another very good point that was made is all the guys making the lawsuit, Nate Corey, they're not actually complaining about their pay. They're not saying that they're getting paid enough. They're saying the UFC is making too much.
Yep.
Right? Which is completely different. Who are they to judge?
Well,
right? They're saying there should be more profit sharing, basically.
The one thing, and obviously, I'm not a professional fighter. I've never fought for the UFC. I see what they pay people. I've looked at the numbers, and from a business standpoint, it's one thing I can kind of speak to. Like, I've managed several businesses that make millions of dollars, and I'm accountable for payroll. I have never, under any circumstances in the last 7 years in my job outside of podcasting, paid more than 10% in payroll versus my return, ever. Right. And if I do, I'm losing money.
Right.
Overheads are expensive.
You lost me there. I am not good at math, and I'm not good.
No, but
business stuff. But I can tell you one thing: during my time with UFC, I was always paid more than fairly and treated equally more than fairly.
Well, so, you were even telling me like they sent you Christmas gifts.
Yeah, they send you Christmas gifts. I got royalty checks for the video games that I was in. Sure, the people that are first coming into the UFC, like they're fighting on the undercard, they're going to be getting paid 8-8, 4-4, But I mean, what do you expect? You can't be making Brock Lesnar money if you're not Brock Lesnar, Yeah.
No, I agree, and I think, I don't know, I feel I understand because of the job, because of the risks that go along and the amount of work you put in. I mean, I'm speaking as an outsider. I mean, I've seen it with you. I've seen it with other fighters I've worked with. I understand the effort and the time, but it's like any job.
Sport. And when you're an artist, when you're a painter, when you're a starving artist, as they say, and what are you going to do? You're going to sue the art world because it's too hard to make it at the beginning, and you can only make it once you're dead. That's when your paintings go up in value.
Yeah,
that's just the way it is. Every endeavor that you undertake and that you have a passion for is hard at first, and that's what separates the passionate from the not so passionate. Is people quit at first because it's too hard and there's not enough money, whereas the people with a passion, they don't care and they say, oh fuck, I would do this for free.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's why I'm kind of confused almost by the panel of people who are involved. Like you have guys like Carlos Newton, who I love dearly. I think he's an awesome guy. And
who is it? It's Nate Corey. It's John Fitch. Who else?
Carlos Newton.
Carlos is in there. I didn't know
Carlos is in there, yeah. And dude's crazy smart. If you ever get a chance to talk to Carlos Newton, that dude is a fucking
I know
genius.
Carlos.
And Kang Lee, that was the other one. I feel like a lot of those guys, specifically like John Fitch and Kang Lee, it's almost more personal than professional. Like Dana shit all over John Fitch, like his last 3 fights, and then cut him after a lot. I think it was his loss to Hendricks. I could be wrong. He cut him, but then he goes to fight wherever he is now, like World Series of Fighting or 1FC or wherever he is, and he's probably making more than he was before. So I don't understand his problem. Kang Lee, it's like, yeah, you got ousted for like testing high for HGH, but the test sample was wrong and blah 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 blah. But it's like,
you can't rely on that. We don't know
like I don't understand. But to your point again, no one's complaining about not getting paid enough. Like these are all higher level guys. Like when they announced that the suit was coming out, it's like, oh, these are top level fighters. And it's like, okay, well then what's their problem? They're top level fighters who are still actively employed. They're gainfully employed. Fitch got cut, got picked up by another promotion. What's the problem?
Yeah, exactly.
Kang Lee acts more than he fights, and if he wanted to fight, I'm sure one of those promotions would pick him up. Bellator would scoop him in a heartbeat.
It's not like they got fired from UFC and then UFC kept on making money off their name.
Exactly. So just I have a really hard time grasping it. Like I don't understand. Like if it's not the pay, and you're saying it's the competition, but there is no competition because you're all employed.
I think there's a little bit of a personal vendetta involved in there.
It just seems like a lot of work for very little payoff. Like I don't understand, and maybe I need to do more reading. Maybe I should just shut the fuck up. But like, what's the goal?
Yeah.
Like I still don't understand.
Well, I think the goal is to make money usually in any lawsuit, right? Well, I don't think that they're doing it for justice.
Well,
I doubt it.
No. Yeah, because like I don't know. Like, do you want a fighters union? Like, do you expect that? Like, I don't see a fighters union ever happening personally.
No. You can't have a fighters union. No. There's no boxers union. There's no tennis players union. I don't know why.
I think Dana White's even said it. It might be Dana White. It's like you get in, you make as much money as humanly fucking possible, and then you get out.
Right.
Like, you don't spend any money and you get out. Like that's what you try and do.
Yeah. And
yeah, it's not necessarily the best or most lucrative career for all guys, but I mean, you look at guys like GSP and you hear how much they're making, and it's possible. It's like any job. Like I've been in my line of work for going on 15 years, and when I started I was making minimum wage. I was making $8 an hour. I ain't making $8 an hour now, but it took me 15 years to get to where I am.
That's right.
And that's like any job. That's not just me. That's not just you or like whoever. That's any job. You don't start on the top or in the middle making as much as you. You start from the bottom
and you work your way up.
Yeah, like you do. And I think a lot of people, from a fan perspective, who are saying, well, there are too many fight cards and it's too much and oversaturated. It's like, okay, you want fighters to make more. They're creating more opportunities for these guys to fight, so they will make more money. What's the problem?
That's right.
There's just so much contradiction going on between what people want but don't want, or they feel isn't fair.
And with the sponsorship issue as well, I mean, there's no other sport or company or TV show or reality show or anything that will let you be on the stage created by the company and bring in your own sponsors.
Yeah.
And then the company does not get... Could you imagine if, like, you're watching the TV show Friends, if Friends was still on, and then Ross is wearing, like, he's sponsored by an outside company, a real company, like the actor, you know? No, that's not going to happen. That can't happen. Well, that's what's happening in UFC, basically. You know?
It's true. And, I mean, to be fair, I mean, for some of those guys, like the top-level guys, obviously you're making good money off of sponsorships, but it's hard. You know, like I've dabbled in freelance management, and it's hard to get money for fighters. Like, if you're not a top guy, there's not a lot of money anymore.
You have to be fighting on televised fights, basically.
Absolutely. It's not the days like, 6, 7, 8 years ago where, you're wearing a tap out ball cap and they're going to pay you $20,000 to wear it. The money's just not there anymore. It's just not. Right. So if this new deal is an opportunity to make more money for the fighters, even on a lower level, which I think is kind of the intention, then good for them. I mean, it sucks for the clothing companies. Don't get me wrong. I think it's tough for companies who have been in it for a long time. I'm a big fan of Dethrone. I think they make great shit. And this is going to hurt their business a lot, So it is really unfortunate for companies like that who have supported fighters for a really long time, and they're going to have to, I really truly do hope there are opportunities in the other promotions, and they get, they make up that lost revenue, because it's going to affect everybody pretty deeply. But I can't really criticize the UFC for making that decision.
No,
I mean,
you're right. It's probably an offer that they could not turn away.
For sure. I mean, it benefits a lot of people, and I mean, other companies. I mean, let's be real. I was talking to someone at work the other day about Tap Out. Like, Tap Out was started with the UFC. I mean, they were probably one of the first sponsors, like Tap Out and Zions. The first two that I can remember. I remember
when all they had was stickers.
Exactly.
Back in the day, the first time I'd seen them, all they had was stickers. They didn't even have T-shirts.
Exactly. And I mean, you could say, oh, it sucks they're not involved in the UFC now, but Tap Out isn't Tap Out of 15 years ago. Tap Out's owned by a multi-million dollar apparel company.
I just read that they're about to become a major sponsor and partner with WWE.
I saw that this morning.
Probably in the same capacity that Reebok will be involved with UFC.
Yeah, and you know what? Good for them.
Yeah, good for them.
Good for them. And if anything, let's be real. People who aren't aware of who Tap Out is, which I would find that to be probably a very slim audience, if anything, it's going to turn them on to Tap Out, and that's going to potentially turn them on to MMA, which will in turn turn them on to the UFC. It's this weird full circle thing, but I mean, we're all still kind of going to end up in the same spot. So it's unfortunate in a lot of ways, but if it's going to benefit the fighters, then great. I mean, it's going to be tough for some of the managers, because they're going to lose some money from the back end of the sponsorship.
Oh, there was a huge revenue stream that was made off the sponsors that the fighters rocked in UFC. But
for sure,
hey, that's
But that's the way the business goes. To your point, there are no other major league sports that are like that, and a lot of athletes still endorse products. Like, you have Sidney Crosby's, I think, Reebok. I mean, you look at Michael Jordan. They still sell Air Jordans. Dude hasn't played basketball for 20 years. Let's be real. It's possible to have lucrative endorsement deals outside of the cage. Yeah. You can do other things.
I had quite a few,
You did. You had Everlast was one of them.
Yeah.
That was a huge one. You had your own fucking commercial, dude. That's
pretty good, yeah.
And that wasn't wearing an Everlast badge on your shorts when you fought.
Yeah.
So it's definitely possible. I think it's going to make a lot of guys work a little harder, but honestly, I don't see how it's the worst thing in the world. I think people just don't like change.
I mean, you're going to get a lot of cool Reebok gear. Yeah. You're going to get official, UFC Reebok clothing gear. I think it'll be all right. I think it'll be fine. You know, I don't think the guys at the very beginning, at the bottom of the ladder, were making that much of sponsors, anyways.
Yeah.
So you know, they might even come out and make more with Reebok than what they were making before Reebok came along. You know, and as they go up in status, as they move up on the spout order and they get into televised fights, you know, there is a pay scale in place, and people will be making more off of the Reebok, like I guess profit share or the Reebok sponsorship model, you know, because they will have a pay model like that in place. You know, is I guess the higher you are in the rankings, the more you make off the Reebok deal, or I guess the more shirts you sell. I don't know the exact details. It's probably still being worked out. But
I was gonna say, yeah, I've heard a couple things kind of based off.
People
of that.
will have their own clothing line, and you'll be paid based on how much you sell. I guess I don't know the details.
I mean, it's in a lot of ways leaving the marketing in the hands of the fighter, which is smart, because I mean, you got guys like Jose Aldo, great fighter, scary fighter, doesn't really market himself that well.
No, well, I mean, yeah, he can't with the language barrier. I don't think he cares.
I know, dude needs to learn English. What is he sleeping on? Like, come on, dude. Look at Anderson. Yeah. Anderson's the only guy who gets away with it. Now that I think about that shit, dude speaks English, but doesn't speak English, and is like the best fighter of all time, and people love him. Well, you either love him or you hate him. Let's be real. But still, yeah, Jose Aldo's not at that point yet, though.
No. Well, I don't know. Some of them just don't care. You know.
I guess, but you know, if you don't,
he's one of the ones complaining about pay as well. You know.
He needs, I don't know. I really want to like the guy. I really do.
I think a lot of fighters would benefit from having better attorneys or managers negotiate their contracts, so that long term they're not stuck in with shitty fights. Because that's probably what happened with Jose Aldo. Is when he first got into UFC, he negotiated a long-term contract. He was more just happy to be in UFC probably, and you know, he's still making, you know, what inadequate pay in his mind because of that long-term contract.
You know what? That's a pretty good point. That could very well be it. So, what do you think of like situations with the whole Nate Diaz thing, where no matter what, it's not good enough?
Nate Diaz. Yeah. Well, he's always complaining. I don't know. It's those guys. Those guys are they're different cats, you know. I don't know. They're hard to deal with, and they kind of remind me of just the angry kids in school, you know, that were always in trouble no matter what. And I think that's what's happening. You know, I think Dana White is like the principal of the school. And the school is UFC high. And high. No pun intended. But anyways, I think Nick and Nate Diaz are the bad kids.
Well, I don't like it's weird. They seem to almost go back and forth, I feel, where it's like one day you can't stand Nick Diaz because like he doesn't want to show up, he doesn't want to do anything, and Nate's like the really level-headed one who, you know, like I remember when he fought Cerrone and he was like really selling the fight but was super respectful during the fight and like after, and you're just like, oh, I really like this guy, and then he doesn't want to fight because his contract's not good enough. And hey, I mean, if your contract's not good enough and you want to change it and you think you're worth more, by all fucking means, fight for more money. Right. Not literally, of course. But then when you make this whole to-do about how you've renegotiated your contract and then immediately after you lose your fight, you keep complaining that it's not enough money, and you were the one who initiated the renegotiation, agreed to the renegotiation, and then don't show up for pre-fight workouts. Didn't he miss weight? Am I talking shit? I feel like he missed weight.
Probably.
Like,
yeah. We're still talking about Nate Diaz here?
Yeah, Nate Diaz, yeah.
Oh,
like,
yeah. I'm sure he did.
What are you doing? Like,
yeah, exactly.
And then you got guys like Nick, who I really like, And yeah, he did. Sorry, I'm just like Googling this now. Yeah.
No, he's like a guy that you invite over to your house, and he walks in and he starts breaking shit all over, dishes. He clogs the toilet, and then he has the nerve to complain that your house is not good enough, your food's not good enough. You know? I mean, if you want to complain, if you want to be entitled to demand things, you know, get on your work. You know, start working hard and stop complaining.
Yeah. No, I know. I just, it doesn't make sense. I feel like he's regressing so much, and he had so much potential. And his brother, I think, I like this Nick Diaz. I like how he's quiet and he's not really talking shit anymore. And I mean, I feel like because of this, like just because of like it's all quiet on the Western Front, he's taking this fight really seriously. I mean, this is truly a fight I don't think he needs to sell. This is Nick Diaz, everyone's, you know, favorite guy to hate or love, who has this suffocating striking ability on everyone he fights, and he's fighting who many believe to be the greatest of all time. Like, it doesn't take a lot. Like, there's your fight. You don't need to shit talk. You don't need to do anything crazy to sell that fight. It's going to sell itself. And I feel like he's taking it seriously, and I'm not counting Nick Diaz out. I don't know about you. I mean, Anderson's a fucking ninja, but I'm not counting him out.
No,
but
I mean,
here's the $1 million question for you, though, and I really want your opinion on this. Here's a guy in Nick Diaz who's coming off of 2 losses, although I kind of feel like he beat Carlos Condit, but whatever. Coming off of 2 losses, he's going to fight Anderson Silva. If Anderson Silva beats him, he automatically gets a shot at Chris Weidman. Do you think that's fair?
It's tough to say. He wasn't, other than him, who is there? You know, other than Anderson Silva. That middleweight division's a little bit weird, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. The question is, if Nick Diaz won, would he get a shot at Chris Weidman?
That's
you know?
You know what's funny? I don't think a lot of people are asking that question.
No, it's yeah, but I don't know. I think Anderson Silva getting a title shot is not unfair, because other than that, who else is there? You know, I mean, Lyoto Machida, but Chris Weidman beat him, so really, there's nobody else.
It's a pretty short list. Well, it's, I mean, after the Belfort fight,
Jacare, there's Jacare actually. Jacare should be in there. You know.
Let's see.
Jacare is not nearly as big of a ticket seller as those guys.
Yeah, I got Tim Kennedy. Well, Kennedy, or no, sorry, it's Lyoto and Rockhold are fighting, aren't they?
Oh, and there's Vitor that's in there.
Yeah, Vitor's fighting.
He's fighting Chris Weidman. He's fighting Chris Weidman next. That's right.
Yeah, you know what? That's a big jump, because you go to Tim Kennedy, and Tim Kennedy Anderson wouldn't be a bad fight, actually. You know, Tim Kennedy coming off of Michael Bisping.
Right.
That's, you know, I could kind of see that. But then, yeah, you got Gegard Mousasi, and then after Gegard, you got Mark Munoz, CB Dalloway, Tally's Ladies, and Costas Philippou. And then our friend Tim Boach.
No, I think the guy that makes the most sense is Anderson Silva right now.
Yeah.
And then after that, right now there's Vitor Belfort, but after that it's Anderson Silva, or maybe even Nick Diaz, just for shits and giggles, just to see what happens.
That'd be kind of
crazy. And then after Anderson Silva, though, it's Jacare for sure.
What do you think about Vitor? You think he's got a chance?
Yeah, of course he does.
Non-TRT Vitor?
Yeah, never mind all that non-TRT, pro-TRT, whatever. It doesn't make a difference.
You don't think?
You know? No, it doesn't. The Vitor is Vitor with or without the juice. It's all in his mind. You know, he didn't do those spin kicks because he was a... Testosterone doesn't give you better spin kicks. It increases your testosterone. It increases your recovery. It doesn't increase your martial arts skill.
I guess.
No, you don't guess. You know, because I told you. Hey, man. You know, the testosterone is not going to improve your punching, your punching technique or your jiu-jitsu technique. It's going to improve maybe your stamina. It's going to improve your strength. You know, it'll improve your doggy style with your girlfriend or your wife. guarantee you that. But
his wife is a smoke show, so good on him.
Yeah, she's famous in Brazil.
Is she really?
Yeah, but you know, other than that, no, I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference, you know, if any at all. And I think Vitor, I don't know, the guy's got a ton of experience, man. But Chris Weidman is such an unbeatable, strong kid. He's got youth with him. He's huge, and I heard he really struggles to make that weight. That means he's big, you know.
Yeah.
Like this new breed of fighters, they're big. The new 170s are huge. Like I was kind of a big middleweight, and I'm not anymore. Now I'm like, and I'm more the size of a 170. You know, they're just getting bigger and bigger.
Do you think that's smart?
You mean because of the weight cutting?
Yeah, because I mean, again, you can look at BJ's fight. You can look at like BJ's last fight against Frankie Edgar. You can look at the Hendricks Lawler fight. I mean, a lot of people. You look at Johnny Hendricks at a weigh-in, and you think he's gonna die.
Yeah, I've never seen him weigh in. I mean, if they can make it happen, they can make it happen. You know, if those guys can fight 5 rounds that hard, so they obviously know how they don't have a problem cutting weights. You know, they don't cut too much weight. If he was cutting too much weight, he'd be gassing in those 5-round fights. You know? I
guess so. I feel like there's gonna have to be a point where they need to do something about weight cutting. It seems so detrimental to your health in an overall way. I mean, you have kids like trying to get into pro fighting. Like I know one kid who was getting into pro fighting and developed that whole like muscle breakdown disease from it. Forgive me for not remembering what it's called, but like just from doing a severe weight cut, from going from 160 to 125 in such a short period.
Really? I've never heard of that.
He fucked up his body for life.
Wow.
It's just like your body can't handle crunching down to that small for such a short period of time and then building right back up.
Yeah. It can be hard on the kidneys as well.
Yeah, well, in the comment or description thing, I'll put a fucking link to the WebMD page for this shit. But like, it's a serious thing. I think I don't know. I remember even talking to you and Steph, like our friend Steph, way back in the day, where I was like, I want to fight, and you're like, what do you weigh? And I'm like, 155. And you're like, you got to fight at 125. And I'm like, you are fucking crazy.
No, because you have a small frame, you know.
But like, that's crazy to me to think about losing that much weight, especially now, bro. I'm pushing 170. We don't need to talk about it though. But like, it's so crazy to think of how much weight guys are cutting. It just doesn't seem.
Yeah, the weight cutting issue is always going to be there unless you somehow make drastic changes, like having same day weigh-ins.
That's what I mean, like amateur fights.
Yeah. And then well, what they do in wrestling or in boxing, I believe, they have day before weigh-ins, but then they re-weigh you the next day, and you can only have put on a certain percentage of your weight back on, like 20%, you know.
Or even like jiu-jitsu tournaments, like they weigh you right before you hit the mats.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's,
that would be tough. That would be tough. No, because then there would be some guys who ate a heavy meal that day, so they'd be heavier than usual. There's too much room for error.
I feel like from a health perspective, almost, I mean, not to the same level as obviously like the head trauma, but I just feel like, again, like maybe we're not seeing the long-term effects. I mean, well, guys like Daniel Cormier have had a lot of problems because of weight cutting when he was doing wrestling. So.
Yeah, well, he just that one time.
Yeah.
He did too much. But I mean, I've cut weight tons of times. I've never had a problem. I don't think I was cutting that much though, but you know, some guys cut more than others, that's for sure.
I just feel like it's one of those things. I feel like we could just change it like that, and the head trauma and everything. I just feel like somehow they're all linked. I could totally be talking shit. I am not a doctor.
Let me tell you what I think should change. What my idea. And here's what I think should happen. They should implement 3-minute rounds, but for a standard fight would be 3-minute rounds. And I think what would happen is you would have more fighters fighting more aggressive because it's only 3 minutes, so you don't have to worry about gassing on the ground. You would take more chances and go for flashier submissions. Why? Because if you end up on the bottom because you missed a submission, you don't have to wait that long to be just kind of lay and pray. The round's only 3 minutes. right? So you would have a public that has a already short attention span that's more liable to pay attention, to stay focused on the fights because it's only 3 minutes.
Yep.
And then the title fights could be 5 3-minute rounds, like we have right now with 5-5. And also having shorter rounds, it would just make for better fights, in my opinion.
I agree. It would definitely create a sense of urgency because you have a lot of guys.
Yeah, that's right. A sense of urgency. That's a good way to put it. You would have faster fights.
Yeah. Well, look at the Hendricks Lawler fight. Like, there was a lot of situations where Hendricks was just like grinding against the cage because it's really all he could do, and he knew
killing time.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly. Whereas, I mean, you can't do that in a 3-minute round. Like, you really can't do that. It would be like the
fight,
last.
and because you don't even need to worry about it. That's the thing, because it's only 3 minutes. You can do what you want for 3 minutes. You can go balls out, right?
Well, it'd be definitely interesting, and I mean, maybe it'll take a newer promotion trying it. I mean, I don't know how it works for implementing changes like that in organizations like the UFC or Bellator.
It would take, I'm telling you, some amateur organizations already do it. I have fought in 3-minute rounds when I was fighting in tournaments, when I would have to fight more than once in a night. And it was still hard because they're 3-minute rounds. So you're fighting aggressively. So you do get a little bit tired faster, but it's only 3 minutes, right? So you don't have to wait as long until you get that break.
You never know, man.
It's going to take somebody with balls to want to do something different. And honestly, if you're the public, if you're a diehard MMA fan or even just a casual fan, and you pay money to purchase a ticket, and you show up at the event and it's pro fights, and instead of 5 minutes of 5-rounders or of 5-round fights or 5-minute round fights, you have fights that are 3-minute rounds, you're not going to complain. I don't think he's going to feel like he got ripped off because instead of a 3 5-minute round fights, he got 5 3s. Especially if they're faster paced, better, more aggressive fights.
Do you think it would draw more people who are potentially like kind of on the fence?
People. It would draw more people, especially the people with shorter attention spans.
Yeah, I definitely, and you know what, to the same point, and maybe this is a detriment considering the podcast that we're doing, but like, I think you might see maybe less submission attempts, like longer setups for submission attempts, just because of that. It would be more knockouts, more striking.
I think you would see more submission attempts, and the ground style would be more akin to judo, which is a takedown into a submission right away, because you don't really have time to go for casting or for holding the position.
I was gonna say there wouldn't be a lot of guard work or anything like that in a 3-minute round.
No, there would be a lot more jumping submissions, I think.
Yeah, which could be good. And I mean, honestly, I think Jiu-jitsu almost needs to find their home in the same regard as well. I mean, that's a sport that I feel is kind of on the brink of being able to be popular on television. Like, it's almost there. Like, Metamoris almost has it figured out where you can televise these events, but I just don't think it's fast enough. I mean, if we're already saying that to a certain viewer, 3 5-minute rounds in UFC aren't holding enough attention, man, 5-minute rounds of jiu-jitsu are not going to cut it. Like, people, the casual fans aren't going to necessarily watch jiu-jitsu, but I feel like slowly but surely people at Metamoris are kind of figuring that shit out, and it's in the matchmaking and not necessarily the matches themselves that are bringing in those viewers.
Right. I think you have another good point there.
But you know what I'm worried about? I feel like UFC may be going down that same road. I'm figuring this out as I'm talking. But you gotta, look at the whole CM Punk situation. That's matchmaking. Right. That's not the fight.
Well, I think in that case, they don't even care if CM Punk comes in and loses in 30 seconds. They just want to get they just want to get some attention from the WWE viewers. They just want the WWE viewers to think about UFC. They want the UFC logo to exist in their mind's eye for a few seconds, It's a cross promotion. Basically, they want to steal some viewership from WWE.
I could see that. I
think WWE is trying to do a similar thing by grabbing onto Tap Out.
You know what? That's a good point.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that does make sense. I feel like they want to set him up for success. It's in their best interest for him to be successful.
You're right. You're absolutely right. It is in their best interest for CM Punk to be successful. But if he's not successful, it's still not a loss to them. It's a win-win. Whatever happens.
Well, and you can look at Brock as a good example for that, because like he lost to Frank Mir and then came back to win the belt.
Right, you're right.
And had the biggest pay-per-view draw, if I'm not mistaken.
And I'm sure just from the short stint that Brock had in UFC, there are a number of WWE fans who jumped ship over to UFC.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I mean,
but I would never see any UFC fans jump ship over to WWE. I don't think it would have looked like that. No.
And that's too bad. Well, I don't know. I'm not a wrestling fan, but
I wonder if there are still people out there who believe or who wonder if pro wrestling is real. There has to be.
There have to be. At least kids. Like kids have to.
When I was a kid, I was like, is it real or not? It looks fake, but they act like it's so real.
It was always for me. It was like the Attitude Era with like Austin and The Rock. It's like, man, Steve Austin and Vince McMahon fucking hate each other. Like, I don't know how he's been fired.
That's real hate.
Exactly, but I was like hook, line, and sinker, man. When you're like 13, you're like, oh my god, this shit is so real. Like they hate each other, and he's actually holding him hostage in the middle of the ring, and fucking.
They're having a boiler room match. Somebody gave birth through a hand.
The boiler room matches. Those were fucking great, man.
Yeah. Do you remember when somebody gave birth? So I think it was this big black pro wrestling woman gave birth to a hand. She gave birth. She went into labor. And a hand came out of her womb. That was around when WWE and WCW were just in a ratings war. And they were doing just the craziest, most bizarre stuff just to get ratings. That's it. Even if it didn't make sense, even if it just made the company look just weird and bad, they just wanted viewership and ratings.
That's crazy. Well, Vince McMahon is fucking insane in the best possible way, but like you read stories about like when his daughter was pregnant, that he had pitched the storyline to have been his baby, that it was like this incestuous pregnancy just to draw ratings. It's like, man, you are actually out of your goddamn mind. Like, what are you thinking? But the guy, you know, look what he's done to wrestling. He is the face of professional wrestling. And speaking of monopolies, I mean, you know, the guy bought WCW. Yeah. Cornered the market, you know.
I saw a good documentary recently about WCW and WWE. It was interesting.
Oh yeah?
It was on Sportsnet. Yeah. It's a cool. The business of pro wrestling has always been interesting, with like the intricacies and just the way that Vince McMahon bought out all this, especially like in the '80s when Vince McMahon bought out all the smaller promotion. Now you want to talk about a monopoly?
Yeah, like
go back to that. Yeah, but no, it's always been interesting. You know, even though it's you know, it's not UFC, but the business side of it has always been cool.
Yeah, and they've definitely, I think, mirrored each other. I mean, you have the WWE online, or I think it's the WWE Network is what it's called, and you have like Fight Pass and like how they compare to each other. And I mean, you know what's funny? Comparing business models, when UFC announced Fight Pass, it was like, oh, the content seems slightly limited, and I mean, they've expanded it a lot since they launched, which is awesome. But no pay-per-views and things like that, and you know, people were kind of complaining, oh, you don't get any pay-per-view content, and it seems like not really worth it necessarily, which is fucking crazy because it's a great deal. But then you look at the WWE Network, which is an absolutely batshit crazy deal, where it's like $10 a month and you get the pay-per-views. Well, okay, fast forward, 9 months later, they're losing money hand over fist. Yeah. And there's no they're at the point where they don't know when they're going to see a return on it. The projections were, yeah, we're going to eat a dick for like the first year, but it'll start to get better. Now they're just like, we're actually not making any money. We're losing subscribers. Like after the first like 3 months where they could opt out, there's this sharp drop in subscribers. It's like, okay, maybe this was actually a terrible idea. Maybe we shouldn't have, included one of our largest revenue sources in this deal where you pay $9 a month, and now we're losing.
Is that what it is?
That's like $9 a month.
For Fight Pass you're talking about?
No. For the WWE network.
WWE network, that's right, yeah.
So you're not getting any revenue off of those pay-per-views at all.
Yeah.
So it's it seemed like a great deal, but it's a bad business choice. I mean, a great risk. Don't get me wrong. Like, kudos to Vince McMahon for being like, "Fuck it, let's see if this works. Like, let's see if we can."
He's got balls. Yeah.
Yeah,
he's trying to be a little bit avant-garde.
Yeah, and he's not hurting for cash either. So I mean, to a point, he can afford to take a risk. Where the UFC, they're pretty fucking smart with their money. Like, let's be real. Like how many truly bad business decisions has the UFC made that you can talk about?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
like really?
None, really.
Well, yeah, people.
I don't know. They do everything. They seem to do everything pretty good.
That's just it.
From the Ultimate Fighter to just that alone.
Like people criticize a lot of decisions, but when you really break it down, how many bad decisions have they made? Not that many. None that I can really think of off the top of my head.
None that we know of.
Very true. Yeah. Well, you know what? I'll call it.
I don't think they're publicized.
When they brought the Pride library, and then Pride backed out of it or whatever.
Well, no, they're putting they put all the Pride fights on Fight Pass, no?
No, yeah, now they did. But remember way back, it was probably like 5 or 6 years ago, they tried to purchase the Pride library from the people who they thought owned it and didn't own it. So they paid like $50 million for nothing.
Wow.
It was something ridiculous like that.
Japanese. Sneaky Japanese.
I know. You've dealt with those Pride folk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good people over there, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's. I remember there was right when the UFC bought Pride. Let's see what happened. The Pride president, the Pride CEO, was. What was going on? I think my contract was going over automatically to the UFC, but I had to agree to it, right? It needed my consent. So if I said no, I would become a free agent. So I opted to become a free agent instead. But the Pride CEO, of course, wanted me to give my consent that I would go over to the UFC because it would make his, he just sold the company, right? So he needs as many fighters as possible to come with that sale, right? So and I was on the phone with him for 30 minutes, and he was trying to convince me through a translator that I should go over, and he would give me a $10,000 personal bonus, and by the end of the conversation, it had gone over to $30,000. It was actually, I got almost nervous at the end. Like, this guy was really putting the pressure on me. But I mean, I could not make the decision without my manager anyways.
Right. No, it's pretty crazy. I mean, it's funny. Like, you hear about stories like that now, and that culture just doesn't exist in mixed martial arts anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
It's weird, but I don't know.
Right. It's so strong and so quickly. It's now. You're right. It's non-existent. And
I think you can kind of relate to this, and hopefully our listeners can as well, because you're you're close to the same age as me, sort of. It's like skateboarding and BMX in the early 2000s. Remember when extreme sports were really big?
Yeah, like X Games and stuff.
Yeah, and Tony Hawk was everywhere, and Matt Huffman and Dave Mirra, these extreme sports icons.
Skating.
Yeah, when was the last time you saw fucking rollerblading on TV? Yeah. And that shit was on TSN every night. And there was so much money being funneled into it and into the industry, and now I couldn't name you who the best pro skateboarder is. And I think most people, even 10 years ago, could name, like, if they didn't know anything about skateboarding, it's like, who's the best skateboarder in the world? Tony Hawk. Like, because you just know from media exposure. Whereas now, like, without even hitting the point where anyone who doesn't know UFC knows someone in UFC, never even really reached that point, and we're already funneling money out of the industry. It's kind of weird.
That's right.
It's almost like it never peaked, and God forbid, you know, if someone said, who can you name who's in the UFC, and they say Brock Lesnar, what does that say?
Yeah.
And I'm willing to bet that there's a decent amount of people who would say that.
Right.
Because he's a fairly recognizable face, and he still, if I'm not mistaken, kind of totes himself as an MMA fighter within the WWE. Like, that's kind of part of his persona.
He comes out, it's part of his look and his gimmick, I guess.
Yeah. So, I don't know. He's going to come back, though, for sure. Don't you think?
I think he would. I think he wants to make one last big check.
For sure. Who do you think he should fight? I've heard a lot of, like, different pitches for fights, but who do you think he should fight?
It's hard to say. I don't know. Maybe
Tim Sylvia?
Tim Sylvia is done, son. Maybe if Brandon Shaw gets permission from Joe Rogan, it could be him.
Oh, dude.
Is that too soon? Should I not have said that?
Too soon. I don't think that's a good fight for Big Brown. I think that's a good fight for his bank account. I don't think that's a good fight for him personally, though.
Yeah.
Brock's a big motherfucker.
Yeah, he is. He's tough. I don't know who he could fight. Honestly, I don't know who it would be. There's some new. Sean Jordan's a heavyweight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's tough. He came over from Bellator. He's tough.
That'd be a decent fight.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put him in there with Overeem again. I don't think. What do you think of Overeem in Big Country?
I don't know. Overeem, if he gets touched once, he's done.
I know.
Chin. So it just depends on if Big Country can land that. That he's got a really hard overhand right. Everybody knows about Overeem's chin.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's not exactly a secret.
No.
Like, the first time, who was the first one to really KO him? Was it Bigfoot Silva in the UFC? I think it was Bigfoot.
Travis Brown, and Bigfoot Silva.
Yeah. And, like, it's not good. In his last fight, he got KO'd in his last fight, didn't he?
Yeah, probably. I think so.
I'm gonna Google this. I'm almost positive of this.
He won. He won his last fight. He beat Stefan Struve, I believe.
Oh, by decision? No, it wasn't by decision.
No, by GNP. Yeah.
Oh shit, that's right. So. He did. Oh, it was Ben Rothwell who was the other one who knocked him out. Like, it's not good. Like, it's really, really... And a win over Stefan Struve, it's like, okay, Stefan Struve's pretty good, but it was also his first fight back from a heart condition after he had to...
That's right, he had some kind of murmur.
Yeah, he had a heart condition and then had to step out of his fight against Matt Mitrione because he had an anxiety attack. And, like, that's his first fight back against you. It's like, okay, you KO'd him. Good on you. But... Roy Nelson, I don't think that's a good idea. Like, if I were his manager, I'd be like, dude, maybe don't go against a high-level striker after you've been KO'd in your last 3 losses. That doesn't seem like an intelligent decision to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't see Nelson losing that fight, and it's not like Overeem's gonna take Nelson down. Like, let's be real. Even then, that's
he's gonna keep it. He's gonna keep it on the feet. He can win. He still hits hard.
Absolutely. And I mean,
Boz Rutan said it best. I mean, once Overeem went to K1, but they really changed his style. He would have his hands way up, and he was basically just kind of walking forwards with his hands up like a tank, and get you in the corner and just threw single shots, but power shots. And they were making sure that the other hand was up as the other hand was punching. So he was always protected because they knew of his chin. So they basically tailor-made a style around his chin.
Yeah.
Which worked really well. I mean, he won the K1 Grand Prix, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
He's just, I don't know. He's one of my favorite fighters. I don't like to see this guy get knocked out left, right, and center. Because he's so talented, but he's just, I don't know. He needs the horse meat again.
Yeah, he needs to go to to go fight in Japan, where horse meat is abundant.
Exactly, it's encouraged. Horse meat's encouraged.
Right.
Yeah, there's some crazy fights that have been announced recently. Like, I don't know, I feel like this is going to be a good year for the UFC. I really do feel that way. As much as people are talking shit about all the changes from a business perspective and everything like that, I think it's a good year for MMA. There aren't a bunch of horrible things going on, and no one's really fucking each other over. Like, I don't know. People are talking so much shit about the UFC. It's like, why? They're putting on more fights. Who cares? Like, you're a fight fan,
you can't
right?
complain about that.
Like, people talking about oversaturation of the market. If you don't want to watch the fights, don't watch the fights.
Right.
If you can't keep up, then you can't keep up.
Because
like,
even if you miss these fights, there'll be more next weekend anyway.
Exactly. Like, who cares? I think people are worried about watered down cards. It's like, okay.
I don't think it's watered down cards. The only way it would be watered down cards would be if it was with watered down athletes who didn't train. You know?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And again, and this has been said by everybody, and it's true. I mean, like, people who complain about who the fights are and what the fights are, it's like, these guys are in the best organization. Like, let's be real. This isn't and I mean no disrespect when I say this, but this isn't a Bellator card every weekend. This isn't a lion fight card every weekend. You're talking about the Major League Baseball, the NFL, the NHL of mixed martial arts every weekend. So you're seeing the best talent in the world every weekend. The fuck is your problem?
Yeah.
Like, who cares? It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know how a lot of people call themselves mixed martial arts fans when they complain about.
Well, there's too many fights. I think sometimes they still kind of feel like in the old days where they feel an obligation to catch all the cards because then there's not going to be one for another 6 months. But it's not like that anymore.
No, and that's
now
a good
you can catch the ones you want. That's right. You know, and even if you miss it, I'm sure you can find it on the internet somewhere on some cards.
Absolutely. And let's be real. Let's really be real. It's like baseball. Who watches 150 games a year?
Yeah, you're right. Nobody.
Like, okay, cool. The Jays are playing Detroit 4 times this week. Awesome. I'll catch one of those games and then catch the highlights on TSN. Like, it's not the end of the world. I don't know. I just think in a time where we have so much content at our fingertips, it's a good thing. And again, like, going back to Fight Pass, the fact that, like, all those libraries are available now and then they keep adding, like, I think they picked up King of the Cage and a bunch of other promotions, like, it's awesome. Like, we have a plethora of mixed martial arts at our fingertips. Like, we should be stoked. 10 years ago, we'd be, like, begging for this.
Yeah, I agree.
Like,
I remember where, you know, a month before the UFC, it was like Christmas. I couldn't sleep.
Yes.
You know? Because it would only come once or twice a year. And then even then, it was you had to go watch it at a strip club because it was banned from pay-per-view for a while.
Jesus. You know? That's, and now it's ridiculous. You can go watch it at Boston Pizza.
Right. That's right.
Yo, did you catch the Jones-Cormier fight?
Yeah, I did.
Did you like it? Did you like crazy coked up Jon Jones?
I thought he showed his experience in a 5-rounder. You know, he did good. I think Daniel Cormier had the right game plan at the beginning. You know, just with crowding him and dirty boxing and nonstop, just kind of, you know, plodding forward and crowding him, but he couldn't maintain that pace and that game plan. Unfortunately, he got tired. You know, I think I don't know. I think he got tired, and after a while, he just kind of accepted the fact that he was tired and he was losing. And I mean, when Jones took him down, Cormier didn't try to fight off those takedowns as hard as he could have. You know, he almost accepted that he was getting taken down. Like, okay, fine, take me down. Like, you know. Definitely
towards the end, you could see that was happening. There was little to no resistance whatsoever from him.
Exactly. You know, and you see that it becomes even more apparent when Jones raises his hands and Cormier lets go of him, almost like he's like, oh fuck, finally, you know, like he wants the fight to hurry up and finish, but it wasn't finished, you know.
Yeah, it was really too bad because I love DC. I think he's a great guy, has a great attitude, a good, dare I say, role model for kids. But you could just tell that sense of defeat was ever present through the last round. And I don't think it really was until that round, but it just became very apparent there was no stopping Jon Jones. Like after those takedowns, like he was just broken. It's too bad. I thought, but you know, as much as I am not necessarily a Jon Jones fan, that was one of his best fights I've seen. Where it was like he put it all together. I mean, you can't. Again, I'm not a fan of him, and I would never, you know, keep that a secret. I'm not a fan of him, but you, as someone who is a fight fan, you can't watch that and not say that was a great performance.
No, he fought well, you know. He's had to. People, you can't take away too much. You got to give credit to Jon Jones. I mean, he had to rally and come back and win the fight against Gustafsson. You know.
Yeah, he did.
He fought Glover Teixeira, who was supposed to be the killer, and he dominated him completely. Yep. He fought Daniel Cormier, who was the Olympian, who came off super hard with the perfect game plan, and he rallied again and came back and beat him. You know, he's won. It's not like he's won every fight in the first round and dominated. You know, he's had wars and he's triumphed. He's come out on top. So, you know, as a person, you can hate him all you want. As a fighter, skill-wise, you can't deny his ability and his toughness.
No, you really can't.
I have spoken. That's it.
As much as I really just don't like the guy, you can't. How could you hold any of his skills against him? Like, no. And
he comes out with new shit every time.
That's just it. You know? And after every fight, it's like, fuck Jon Jones. Like, he hasn't beat anybody good. It's like, okay, look.
Oh yeah, he hasn't beat anybody bad.
It's exactly. You know? That's the thing. It's like, yeah, that argument kind of like in the Brandon Vera days. It's like you could kind of say that. Like, okay, he hasn't beat anyone super high level, but now it's like, no, he's really fucking dominated everybody at every level. I mean, you can't. Like, I'm a huge Rashad fan, and I was really pulling for Rashad in that fight, and he had nothing for him. Like, that's when it started to sink in for me, and I was just, you know, you want Gus to beat him, and then comes back with that elbow, and then just drove the rest of the fight home. And now with the DC fight, and he was aggressive the entire time. Like, he never really let up, and he definitely proved a point. I mean, all the bullshit after the fight and from before the fight withstanding, I mean, the kid's good. Like, you can't hate on him.
Right.
But I'm going to. I'm saying that. I'm fucking hate Jon Jones. But
You're
whatever.
Be a hater.
I'm gonna be a hater.
You're allowed to be a hater.
I just can't stand him. It's his attitude. Just seems like such a douchebag. But who the fuck cares what I think? I'm gonna fire 4 fight cards at you. 4 headliners from 4 fight cards. I want your opinion. Okay. First one, I already know exactly what you're gonna say because we've talked about this a lot. Conor McGregor and Dennis Siver. Who do you got? Or yeah.
McGregor, yeah.
Jeet Kune Do all the way.
Exactly. G-Tech. Yeah.
Gustafsson and Johnson.
And who? Which Johnson?
Rumble.
Oh, Anthony Johnson. AJ. Probably Gustafsson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know why. I don't know.
You think decision?
Yeah, probably. Honestly, I've only seen Gustafsson fight in that one fight against Jon Jones. That's it. Oh, and I've seen him fight against Manoa. No, you're right. That's right. No, I think probably him. He's skilled. You know, Anthony Johnson is very flat-footed. He hits hard, but he's extremely flat-footed. He has a very limited mobility. I think somebody that's quick and lanky and smart like Gustafsson can outfight him.
I'm with you on that. The big one. Anderson Silva and Nick Diaz.
Anderson and Silva. Yeah. He's too big, too strong, too good. He's too Anderson Silva.
It's true. I mean, yeah. I'm not counting Diaz out. Nothing would make me happier than seeing an out of fucking left field submission from Nick Diaz on Anderson Silva. That's like Christmas. Like, that would be the greatest thing maybe of all time. Probably one of the biggest upsets. That's like Matt Serra GSP level of upset. But it's tough to bet against Anderson Silva. Trek Safadine and Matt Brown.
Probably Matt Brown.
Yeah.
Safadine is nothing. He hasn't really impressed me that much. And Matt Brown, I mean, he's done nothing but impress.
It's kind of true. He's kind of a freak.
Yeah. Right.
Actually, I'm going to throw one more at you just because I find this fight to be interesting. Bigfoot Silva and Frank Mir.
Oh, my man, Bigfoot. I might be biased.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that's bullshit.
But I do honestly, I do think he is a little bit. He has a wider range of skills and he had a harder work ethic. And he's just Frank Mir. Sometimes, I mean, you never know who's gonna show up. Is it the Frank Mir that wants to fight, or the one that doesn't care, and takes a beating and then complains that I got stopped too early, right?
Fair enough, but you are friends with Bigfoot, so
Right. Yeah, maybe I have an ulterior motives.
I'm gonna call bullshit and say that you do. I do agree with you though. I think I think Frank Mir. I love Frank Mir, and I think I wish so badly he retired after the Nogueira fight. That was like the sickest submission chain.
Oh my god!
Maybe of all time. And like, what better way to go out?
Right.
Man, I want to rewatch that fight now. That was fucking crazy. So what's new with you, man? Like, what do you think's going on in the fight game that's kind of crazy?
I think right now it's going to be Anderson Silva fighting Nick Diaz. Just those two. You don't get a lot of fighters like that both coming off of long layoffs, and just in their first fight they just take such a high profile fight like that, even though there's more risk involved for Nick Diaz, but he's nothing he does has always made sense, that's for sure.
You think it's more of I don't want to sound douchey and say there's more financial motivation than it is like professional motivation, but do you think that plays like a pretty big role, at least for Nick Diaz?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. I can't tell you how deeply I hope Diaz just does something crazy and wins that fight. You'll know.
He's gonna come out cocky,
You think?
Yeah, of course.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
What, you think he's gonna come out polite?
You think
he's gonna bow to him?
I think he's gonna come out super reserved. That's my call. I'll call it. I don't give a fuck. I think he's gonna be super reserved.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends how he fights, not really how he acts,
I don't know. It's not going to be like when he fought Condit or when he fought GSP. There's going to be like no crazy throwing the middle fingers or anything like that. Like, I don't think he's that stupid. Like, those guys, as great of fighters as they are, they're not fucking ninjas like Anderson Silva.
No, you're right. Anderson Silva's a different breed of cat. He's a different animal.
Yeah, like completely different. So, I mean, look what he did to Forrest Griffin, for Christ's sake. Yeah. I mean, I just don't. Oh, yeah. I don't see him making any stupid decisions. Yeah. Maybe at least right away. What was I gonna ask you? I was gonna ask you about Canadian MMA. Like, what do you think about like TriStar blowing up and everything like that? Like, I feel like there's more of a vocalization now, almost than before with GSP, about like Faraz and like how the TriStar coaching goes. And
well, Faraz is one of the best cornermen I've ever worked with, and he's a very good strategist, good coach, So it doesn't surprise me that he's getting recognized finally. I knew I think he kind of always has been, especially within the industry, but now people outside of the industry, he's being put into the limelight because of, well, first and foremost GSP, and now Rory McDonald, and I guess guys like Francis Carmon and Alex Garcia and guys like that.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I don't know. I feel you're hearing his name a lot more. I mean, he always
You're
got
right. Well,
almost...
he's becoming an authority on mixed martial arts now.
Exactly. I could not have put it better. Yeah, I just, it almost seemed like it was George St. Pierre and Firas Zahabi, and you're like, oh, that's the guy who, like, molded this guy. And now it's, oh, no, that's the guy who's, like, setting up an entire generation of fighters.
Yeah.
Like, he's responsible for training a bunch of assassins on a regular basis.
Right. Josh, I apologize. I have to cut you off right here.
Such bullshit. Who the fuck do you think you are?
I'm DK, baby. This is as much time as I have for this.
This is unacceptable, but okay, buddy. So yeah, we'll have to do this again sometime, perhaps next week.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
No worries, bro. I will talk to you later. And thank you for donating your time. I appreciate it.
You got it.
All right, take care, bro.
I want to say what's up to TriStar, who we spoke of today. ATT. I'm staying in the middle of the Hector and Rory.
Very smart. Very smart.
And that's it. Hello, Christine Gowdy. Hello, my brothers and my mom.